In Liverpool in 1960, one of the most influential bands of the era was formed, the Beatles. The Beatles consisted of John Lennon, Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, and George Harrison. Today, the group is known as the best-selling music artists in the United States, and in 1984, they were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Sadly, John Lennon was assassinated in 1980, and George Harrison died of lung cancer in 2011. The last two remaining Beatles are Ringo Starr and Paul McCartney. Or maybe not. On January 7th, 1967, the car belonging to Paul McCartney got into a car crash, and consequently, a few newspapers reported that he died. In actuality, Paul McCartney was never even in the car when it crashed, because he was at a party in Sussex. The person driving the car was Mohammed Hajij, who was using the car to bring drugs to the party that Paul McCartney was at. Naturally, a few rumors stating that Paul was dead began to spread, but they didn't make it too far. One thing that really secured this rumor was a song released in 1969 by Terry Knight named St. Paul. Some people believe that the song hinted at Paul McCartney's death, but it's more likely that the song was about how Knight believed that the Beatles would soon break up. Either way, we can't really make any conclusions based off of this, because the lyrics were very cryptic, so it really could have been interpreted as a bunch of different things. The actual first mention of the rumor was in a student newspaper of Drake University in 1969. The newspaper article was titled, "Is Beatle Paul McCartney Dead?" This article did not receive much attention, but later something happened which really ignited the rumor. On October 12th of that year, the DJ of a Detroit radio station took a call from a college student named Tom Zarsky. Zarsky told the DJ everything about the Paul is dead rumor, and as proof, told him to play Revolution No. 9 from the Beatles' White Album backwards. The DJ did so, and was very clearly able to hear the words, "Turn me on, dead man." Here is Revolution 9 played forward.
Number 9, number 9, number 9, number 9, number 9.
And here it is played backwards.
Turn me on, dead man. 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 Turn me on, dead man.
Now, normally when I hear people talking about hidden messages being played in songs, the messages are extremely difficult to hear, and I would have never known what the message was unless I was told. But for this one, I think we can agree that it is very clear what it sounds like, which is, "Turn me on, dead man." This is where the rumor really took off. Ever since the rumor took off, fans have been finding a bunch of signs which they believe indicate the death of Paul McCartney. Essentially, people believe that Paul McCartney died in the car crash on November 9th, but was replaced by the winner of a Paul McCartney lookalike contest named William Campbell in order to save their career and not break the hearts of the fans. In addition to what was already said, there were more clues present. A couple clues were seen on the Beatles' 8th studio album cover. One of the first things that people have pointed out about this cover is how the floral arrangement seems as if it's for a funeral. They also note that in the bottom right corner, the flowers are in the form of a left-handed bass guitar, which is the instrument that Paul played. People also note that the flowers spell out Beatles, but the flowers at the end of it seem to form the letter O. So together, it would spell out B at Leso, which is the name of a Greek island that they supposedly bought. Some people speculate that this is the Beatles inviting fans who discovered Paul's death to the island. These points are pretty weak in my opinion. If you look closely at the rag doll on the cover, you can also see a toy Aston Martin convertible, which is the car that Paul supposedly died in. Another clue, which seems kind of cool, but it's also sort of a stretch, has to do with the drum in the center that says Lonely Hearts. If you bisect the Lonely Hearts, you will get the phrase, I won, IX, he die. If I1 is 11, and IX is the Roman numeral for 9, then you could decode this as 11-9, he die, which would mean November 9th, he die, which is the day that the car crash happened. One of the final hints in the cover is that someone is raising their hand behind Paul, which in some religions is a symbol of death. Or the guy could just be waving. There's also a few things people have noticed about the Beatles' 9th album. On one of the images on the poster inside the album shows Paul McCartney laying in a tub of water. Some people think this looks like a decapitated head floating in blood. In addition, the song Glass Onion contains the lyrics, "Looking through a glass onion." According to the DJ that I mentioned earlier, the term glass onion was British slang for the handle of a casket, because in the 19th century, caskets had glass handles that looked like glass onions. Apparently, Paul is looking through this because he's dead. Finally, the cover of the Abbey Road album has been analyzed by supporters of the Paul is dead theory. So, in this picture, Paul is seen holding a cigarette with his right hand, even though he was left-handed, so this might indicate that the person in this picture is indeed not the real Paul. Lastly, this picture was supposedly taken at the area where the car crash happened. So, here's what I think of all this. I'm almost certain that Paul is not dead yet. I don't think the evidence is convincing enough, and there's a lot of things that just don't make sense or are flat out false. First of all, if Paul actually did die and the Beatles were covering up his death, then why would they give us hints? That seems really counterproductive. Also, people say that Paul was replaced with someone named William Campbell, who won a Paul McCartney lookalike contest in Edinburgh. Funny thing is, I can't find anything about a Paul McCartney lookalike contest, nor can I find any person named William Campbell who won such a contest. And let's just say this is true, and someone named William Campbell did replace Paul. Then, when William dies, who's the funeral going to be for? William or Paul? That would have to cause some issues. And lastly, it's a bit strange that the lookalike would also have the same exact voice as Paul. And if simple logic isn't enough, there's some evidence that the Paul is dead theory supporters have discovered that is simply false. They mentioned how on the Magic Mystery Tour cover, Paul is wearing a walrus suit. This is apparently significant because walrus means corpse in Greek. I don't know who made this up, but it's absurd. Walrus does not mean corpse in Greek. Some people also believe that at the end of Strawberry Fields, you can hear John Lennon saying, "I buried Paul," but in reality he's actually saying, "cranberry sauce." Finally, people say that in the Abbey Road cover, it is significant that Paul is barefoot, because people in Italy are buried barefoot. First of all, I don't see how an Italian culture has any significance in this, and second, I was not able to find anything at all about Italians specifically being buried barefoot. People have even went as far as to say that in this picture, there's a cemetery off to the left outside the frame, and this is just a blatant lie. Although there might have been one or two subtle things at the beginning that could have led some people to believe that Paul is dead, there really isn't anything left that could lead anyone to believe that he seriously is dead. The rumor was interesting to look into, but that's all it is, a rumor. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the flip side.